Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations, to describe for you the two-edged sword of what it's like to be a product or book reviewer. It's one thing to be on the receiving end of a bad review. It's another thing to do one yourself. As I've said in other videos, I worked at ARRL headquarters from February of 1977 until May of 1979, when I decided I was fed up with living up north and moved to Florida, Miami. Well, that's not really Florida, but that's a whole nother video, whole nother series of videos. And when I roughly, I'd say in the beginning of 1978 or 1979, I don't remember the exact years, but I became an assistant technical editor. Or maybe it was editorial assistant, I don't remember. But part of my job was to review products for possible advertisement in QST. And so I did a very thorough job. If someone made a claim about specifications for a piece of equipment, I made sure that it adhered to those specifications. For example, a power supply claims to deliver 12 volts and 20 amps continuously. Well, so I made that 12 volt power supply deliver 20 amps overnight. I used a long piece of thin wire or something like that, and got the current to settle down to 20 amperes and just left that thing there overnight. 24 hours. It was brick on the key. Radio hams know what that means. Anyway, there was a couple of times I got back to the place in the morning and saw smoke coming out of that product supply, or that power supply, and I used to delight in carrying that thing into the advertising manager still smoldering and saying, "You sure we want to advertise this thing?" I took a fiendish delight in finding flaws in other people's work. And I don't know whether that's a characteristic of people who work at ARRL headquarters. I hate to say that, whether it was then or is now. I hate to generalize about anybody. But years later, I got a book reviewed in QST. And it wasn't a very good book, in my opinion. It was, the whole motivation behind the book was skewed and flawed. The title of the book was Amateur Radio Encyclopedia, and it did receive some pretty good reviews from fellow radio hams on Amazon. But when it came to QST, they tore that thing to pieces. And then they concluded with a sentence that they probably shouldn't have included, because it kind of destroyed their credibility. It said, "Don't buy this book, buy our handbook instead." Sort of shattering the whole concept of a product review. But what the review consisted of was pointing out a whole great many little flaws in the technical claims I made in that book. And most of those claims that they made were valid. A few were questionable. They even became very precise about the dates I claimed about my own service at ARRL headquarters. They, meaning the reviewer, whose name I shall not reveal. This was roughly in 1994, when I lived in South Beach, Miami. And I remember that review brought me close to tears. And then later I realized, well, the guy is right. And I did receive one letter. This is snail mail. postal mail letter from a radio ham who said, that was a strange review. I wonder what motivated them to do that to you. Well, I don't know. I don't know what motivated them to do that to me. Probably the same thing that motivated me to make that power supply deliver its full 20 amps until it began to smolder, and then I come prancing into the advertising manager's office. And usually he said, well, you're probably right, but one time he became furious at me, and I livid. And he seemed to be such a good-natured fellow. That scared me. I said, I maybe I better be a little more careful. Now, I don't know whether the guy who did that review received a reprimand or not. The story says he did. But I don't really care anymore, because what I realize now is that I simply got a taste of my own medicine. Isn't it amazing how things come all the way around the universe? Crap that you spit out your mouth, snakes that you vomit up out of your mouth, come all the way around the whole universe and later one day bite you in the ass. And that is precisely what happened to me. Well, what's fair is fair. The book is long since out of date and gone. It doesn't really matter very much. It never sold very many copies anyway, but someone suggested that review probably caused it to sell better than it would have otherwise. No mind. The lesson to be learned here has nothing to do with amateur radio, nothing to do with ARRL headquarters. I was a life member of ARRL, and I did not hold that review against them. I'm still a life member of ARRL and proud of it. And whenever I get a chance in one of my own books, I praise them, and I praise their publications because they are really the best. If you want to learn how to become a radio ham, if you want to increase your knowledge of amateur radio, if you want to update and make your knowledge current, and if you want extremely thorough technical information, go to ARRL Publications, www.arrl.org. That link will be provided in the description of this video. Hats off, well, they're already off, aren't they, to ARRL headquarters. I'm not happy that I got a review like that, but I do realize now that old saw, what goes around comes around, really is true. Stan Gibilisco, W1GV, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, saying 73, which means best regards in ham radio jargon, and so long, which in amateur radio CW jargon goes something like da-da-da-da-da-da.